Well, let's go ahead and get started. We're 1 minute over, and we try to always start and end the show on time, just to be respectful of everybody's schedule and make sure we can get everything we need to packed into the show, because we got a full interview here today. But again, I just want to welcome all of you that are new to the show. I see so many new names this week, so it's exciting to see this audience just continue to grow, being that it's only week 2. But thank you guys for all being on and being on time, and especially welcome to those of you it's your first time on with us. I want to give you just a little bit of the structure for the show, especially for those of you who are new, and kind of what to expect over the next 60 minutes. What we're going to do is we're going to spend the first 40 minutes kind of going through the interview. Again, as we go through, please post your questions in the chat so that you don't forget what they are towards the end. But we always reserve the last 15 to 20 minutes for your specific questions, where Aubrey can bring you on live to ask your questions and be able to interface with our guests each week, which we think makes this a really unique show in the industry, to have the opportunity to ask specific questions and not just be a passive listener. So today, I'm going to be introducing you all to Rick White, who is from Raleigh, North Carolina. He and his son, Wes, run a very successful practice there. His background, as you're going to hear and learn more from him directly, Rick's been in the seminar model business since probably the late 90s. So I don't know anybody who's probably run seminars longer than Rick and has spent more time really fine-tuning and dialing in seminar models and presentations, and of course now educational course models, and you're going to hear a lot from him about that. But some of his results from having made a shift away from dinner seminars and into college courses has been really just transformational. I mean, really astounding to see the amount of growth in really a 12 to 24 month period, when he and Wes really began to take the practice in that direction and make a switch from the saturated seminar routine that so many of us are running or are used to. So specifically, what I invited Rick on and wanted him to share with us, and I'm just going to give you kind of for you A types, I'm going to give you just kind of the outline here, thumbnail outlines, so you know what to expect. But we're going to talk today about leading with education and why that's so powerful, especially from a psychology perspective and positioning with prospects. Then we're going to talk about how Rick markets his course. And I know that Rick is a student of marketing. He continues to push the needle in terms of results and strategy and optimization, what they're able to get high net worth clients into courses for a fraction of what a traditional direct mail or Facebook agency would probably deliver. So excited to hear a little bit about the marketing. And then we're going to drill down on the course structure. So I really want all of you on the call to be able to take away kind of an idea of how Rick structures these courses, and more than that, why it works this way, because he's really got the recipe somewhat dialed in. And probably my favorite part is how he closes for appointments. I know we all put all this work into seminars, all the marketing, the dollars, the time to do the presentations, and it's all to generate qualified appointments. And the way that Rick positions the offer for the appointment is probably one of the strongest I've seen in the industry. So I asked him if he would mind sharing that today, and then we'll open up and we'll take some questions. So with that, again, don't forget to pop your questions as we go. But Rick, I want to just officially welcome you to Next Level Live, and thanks for being willing to come on and share so much of this with all of us.
It's my pleasure to join you and welcome everyone this afternoon. I'm honored to be here, excited to share with you what's going on. It's just an incredible experience.
Excellent. Well, let's start, Rick. Let's jump right into it. I want to talk about something that I think is really foundational to the success of your guys' practice. Is you lead with education. And so would you just talk with us a little bit about what that actually means and what that looks like in your practice?
Well, we chose to go this way because it fit better for us, and I think for many of the attendees, because in this the typical seminar model, at least for our experience, we found that people came, and of course the seminars are centered around a free meal, and so you got the typical plate lickers, that sort of thing, and they're coming and knowing that there's going to be 45 minutes of talking when they're really kind of hungry. They want to get something to eat, but they're also knowing that it's a sales pitch of sorts. And, so there's always a trade-off, and it's almost an adversarial position to start with from a psychological standpoint. So we found that to be very, very uncomfortable, not only for us, but, for the people that came through, and the results were just brutal. in terms of getting the right kind of client that we wanted to see. So
And you guys, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you guys actually went a step further, Rick. And I know that you created a whole separate entity and brand that is a purely an educational brand. So we're going to talk about that for just a minute.
Sure. Yeah. So we created, I originally created my own company, Triangle Adult Learning Center, and then we merged that process with Retirement Wealth Academy, which is an organization we put together with Wes and I and another gentleman on the West Coast. So it's really collegiate in nature. And of course, we do these courses at the college level when possible. And mine's exclusively at the NC State campus in one of their buildings that's well known for public events, meetings, seminars, courses, training, that kind of thing. So it works out very, very well for us. But everything we do is under the auspices of this educational entity. And we find that the approach, then people coming into the course experience have a completely different mindset. Because they're, it's designed, they get literally a course syllabus. It's designed to be educational in nature. They're used to seeing that from their college days. And it just brings back a different experience. And interestingly enough, Brandon, as you know, the people that come to this course are a completely different set of people than generally come to the seminar.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. And so just to be crystal clear on what you guys have done is you have created Triangle Adult Learning to be the educational arm of the business and really separate unto itself, which you're very clear in the course, in the marketing of the course, and even during the presentations in the course, that is completely separate of your financial practice. And I think for those of us who feel like, gosh, every advisor in my market is running seminars every Tuesday, Thursday. I talked to an advisor a couple of months ago who said, yeah, Ruth's Chris booked out for a year and a half every Tuesday, Thursday night, and it's all advisors. I thought, this is just nuts, right? But I think you point out something that's a good point, and that is that you're tapping into a segment of that market that is completely ignoring the traditional dinner seminars because they're not interested in a pitch. And I think that's really true today, where I said this for a long time, with the advent of the internet and smart devices, everybody's in control of educating themselves now, and the consumer wants to drive that process. They want to be educated, but no one wants to be sold. And so you're really lining your message and your approach up in a way that's really what the consumer wants and not trying to fit them in this, square peg in a round hole. So I think that's really brilliant. But then I know you also market the course that way as an educational experience, as you mentioned. But one of the things you do that is interesting to me is that you also charge the folks to attend the course. You nominal, I don't remember if it's 49. You can speak 49. To that, but yeah, tell us a little bit about that. And I think a lot of us as advisors would think, gosh, I don't want to charge them to come because I'm trying to get enough bodies in the room. But you haven't seemed to have a problem with that, even charging them a fee.
No, it actually works out to an advantage because the people that will pay a fee, they're used to paying for something of value. And even though it's a relatively nominal fee, honestly, I could care less in terms of the business model. Certainly it helps a little bit, but the bigger issue is they have skin in the game. They're more likely to have in other words, once they register, they're paying that fee. That's an 85% or higher show rate from registration to actually show up to the event. So that's important. They're coming with expectation, which is a really, really big psychological mindset. They're coming into the room knowing that, they've already received the syllabus. They know what the subject matter is going to be. And the way we literally structure the event is educational in nature. In terms of how we even open, we're very communicative. We're asking questions. That's how I literally open the course, is begin by asking them, hey, what are some of the things you had on your mind when you registered? And it begins this dialogue, this free, open dialogue at the beginning, sets the stage for what they were used to having in college or in high school of banter back and forth between the educator, the teacher, and other classmates. And it works out very, very nicely, much different than the silence lecture kind of a scenario with seminars, completely different.
Yeah, one of the things that I think a lot of folks on the show may miss if they're not paying super close attention, but I'm a big strategy guy, and so I think that's why you and I click. I love it, but something that I think you're tapping into there that I'll call out is, we have in our minds what they would call these different schemas, like these ways of understanding things. We know when we go on to a used car lot and the guy comes out with a card, we have a schema in mind. We understand what that means and what the situation is setting itself up for. And so rather than kind of experience the negative side of that, which is do a traditional dinner seminar where they're going to have that in their mind of, I know what a dinner seminar is, and it's going to be the sales pitch and the high pressure and all of that. You're tapping into it on a positive, and you're aligning yourself more with that college professor that they've all experienced and they can pull from. And that really frames up for you how they see you, which I think lends more to the credibility of the whole thing. Which is really powerful psychological positioning, which a lot of what you do has a lot of psychology baked into it, which is why I think it works so well.
Sure. Yeah. When we come into the room, it's something I learned from just the experience of doing it. When I first started doing these, I was, terrified, afraid somebody in the room knew more than I did and all that, which is really dumb because they don't. And so having actually written the course, then there's nothing in the subject matter I don't know. And so it gives you a tremendous amount of confidence when you walk into the room. And I dress like a college professor. I've got, this is just for me, button down, jeans, and a sport coat. So that's what they're used to seeing. And we literally maintain the integrity, by the way, of the separation between the course and our practice. So we do introduce the practice by simply letting them know this is why we can teach on what we teach on, but that we're completely separate. In fact, you can relax, ladies and gentlemen. We're not taking on new clients right now, except under specific circumstances. So this is all about education. It's amazing what that does in terms of lowering their barriers and open up their minds to what's actually in the course content.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about your consulting versus sales model, but I think that's important because I think on the really, top of the surface, that could feel like a bait and switch. But what I think you have found is if you genuinely mean that and you genuinely are purely there to educate this audience, and you really, I know you believe that, so that comes across. But when you do that and you quit worrying about the appointments and the business to be written and all of that, you're actually able to connect with that audience and they feel that from you, which actually does exactly what you want. It actually attracts them to you that much more. So I think that's really, again, strong positioning. And something else you said that I think was important that I want to hit on was that by charging to attend, you have an 85% show rate. And I know today, especially with Facebook marketing and even direct mail, getting consumers to show up is becoming more and more of a challenge. And I understand the hesitancy to want to charge for an event, but just like we would charge for a financial plan, which I'm a big proponent of for the same reason, they've got to have skin in the game if you want to show up. So you might find that by charging, your numbers or your cost per attendee is slightly higher. But you're also, where it really counts, you're getting a more serious prospect. You're getting someone who, how many times have we all said as advisors, they're just there for the dinner. I'm tired of people who show up and they have no interest in what I'm actually here to talk about. That goes a long way to really eliminate that. And if you said it, I think I missed it, but what is it that you said you charge for that on average? What are you charging for attendees?
$49.
49. And then that covers some course materials and things too, which is kind of how you justify that, right?
Sure. Absolutely.
What about, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, we say that to cover course materials. That's all.
Right. Which I know you provide them a workbook and some other things that does help cover the cost of. So what about the course structure? Let's dive into that just a little bit, because I know it's a 2-night, course. And I know there's specific reasons and there's, a couple, I don't know how many hours a night that is, but maybe just talk us through how you've structured this and why.
Yeah, it's a 2-session course. We design it to be pretty complete. The course is designed to address 7 threats that affect baby boomers and how to mitigate those threats. So they're very specific. It's not the standard education type of retirement course you're going to see anywhere else. We cover subject matter in a very specific way, coming from the standpoint of being a baby boomer myself and knowing what baby boomers are facing, behind the scenes. So it's structured in real world terms. So it's a 2-session course. and so much material we can't cover it in one evening at all. And so we have the 2 sessions that runs typically 2 hours, 15 minutes with a short break for 2 sessions. So typically a Tuesday, a Thursday, sometimes even a Saturday morning, depending on, what my schedule is and what the venue has available and what I feel like doing. But and all of those times work great. I mean, we never have any problem filling time slots by any means. So that 2 session, the beauty in the 2 session versus a 1 session type of experience is that it gives us more face time, number one, to develop this rapport, to have this overall experience. Plus, we cover enough subject matter, different areas of subject matter, that it shows that we have expertise in all things retirement. So we're addressing what everybody has concerns about, some more than others, but we're covering all these different areas that directly affect and are directly what is on the minds of the attendees. So we find it's very, very effective. But that 5 hours, give or take, of time really makes a huge difference in terms of them, connecting, or us connecting together, all of us.
Well, and I'm a big proponent of pre-selling, which means you want to take people through in as highly scalable manner as possible, some sort of educational process on the front end to directly impact your closing ratios. Because as advisors, probably the biggest limiting factor that I've seen, two, one is the cost per lead. The other is the number of first appointments that we have one-to-one that don't close. I think, what I would see in my consulting practice with advisors is anywhere from 20 to 30%. But that means, gosh, that's a lot of wasted time with people who aren't going to close. And so the seminar, I think we've all experienced, goes a long way to help with that. But when you get that much more face time to establish credibility, to build trust, to hit on all the topics, compared to a 45-minute, seminar, I know we'll talk about some of your numbers here in a minute, but I know that you've seen that directly impact your closing ratio because they're so much more pre-educated and predisposed to wanting to work with you, or else they wouldn't have come back the second night and they wouldn't have sat there for another 2.5 hours.
That's right. And the way we communicate the course, the first session definitely gets their attention, and then we tee up the second session at the end of the first one so that they're definitely looking forward to coming back. And of course, they don't get the second workbook until they show up.
Yeah,
that makes a difference as well.
And Rick, would you maybe just back up a little bit and just share a little bit of kind of how you got started in the college courses? Because one thing that I see, and I'm sure you do too, and this is why we love to bring advisors on the show and not vendors and wholesalers, is, there's several vendors out there that are like, hey, here, just do an expanded one and do it at a college course because folks like you have been out and you've shared what you do. But I think it's really, as it is with all of our guests, it's the mastery of the small things that really set you apart. But how did you guys decide to make this switch, and how did you actually get to this point?
Well, in my case, I was a little bit, I'm looking for the right word, predisposed to teaching anyway, because my original degree is elementary education. And so that made sense. But in all of the struggles in doing the seminars, I ran across a really good friend of mine. He's retired now, Dave Vick, and he introduced me to the college course concept. And then we did his course for a while, developed our own course and got into it. But just in the experience of doing it, we learned the techniques, the little things that in communication as an educator, the things that help us connect with people, telling stories the right way, bringing in the experiences that is common to all of us. And these little nuances, which we incorporate in our course, is just, it's the little things that really pull people in. And when they eventually come in and see us, they literally, review those things. I remember you said this. I remember how I felt when you said this. That's exactly what we're looking for.
And I think that's an important point. And I see this with all of the next level mentors. I see it with all the 7-figure advisors that we talk with and have lined up for the show in the coming months. it is this idea of, and there was a book, I think it was called 212 Degrees. It's been over a decade since I've looked at it, but the whole premise of it was, water boils at 212 degrees, not 211. It's that
Right.
extra degree where you start to see the water boil. And the thing that I have seen as a common thread in all of the seven-figure advisors, yourself included, that I've talked with and worked with closely, is it's your commitment and mastery to what you're doing. And I think that's why so many advisors get frustrated when we go to a mass market off the shelf vendor for a seminar program, or a wholesaler who put a program together and says, yeah, run with it. Because yes, you might have a PowerPoint, and you might even be able to reserve a classroom to hold the event at, and you may have a mail piece. But without the mastery of the finer points and the details, you just don't get the same end result. And I think we've all been there, experienced that, done that. I just appreciate that in all of you, how you guys are such a student of your own business models, and you don't just kind of settle there, but you're always looking for how do you optimize that. And speaking of that, I think one of the other things that I think you've done that's really, really brilliant, and in fact, I think you're probably the only advisor that I've seen that has done this, but would you talk a little bit about how you've set up, in relation to the course, your appointment process after the fact? Because I think the psychological positioning, again, is really, really smart, and why you see the results that you do.
Yeah, in our case, we call it a financial lab. And just from the 30,000-foot view, the idea there is it's not a separate function. It's literally part of the course. So very similar to what they experienced in high school or college with biology and chemistry, then their financial lab is part of the educational experience. How do you see in the real world what you've learned in the academic side? And we have specific language that we go through with the attendees, and it makes it a natural progression. Because the other thing about it that's really, really important, Brandon, as you know, is that it's completely separate from the practice. So it's still under the auspices of Triangle Adult Learning Center, when they come in. So, and literally when you walk in the office, there's two signs: our practice, and then the educational body that we are part of. So they see that, when they walk in, hey, the guy's telling me the truth. This is the real deal. And we literally maintain the integrity of that financial lab experience all the way through the process. So it's really, I think if there were one thing that makes this whole thing work, is the fact that I'm on a mission, and everybody teaching this course is on a mission. That's a requirement. And that they maintain the integrity of the separation between the educational experience and their practice. When you do that, the rest of it falls in line very, very successfully. No kidding.
Yeah, and that goes back to your consulting versus sales model, because
Sure.
myself included, I want to pay a consultant. In fact, I'd prefer to pay some money to someone. In this case, you're just charging for, the course. You may charge, for a financial plan. But I think when we do that, and I find a lot of advisors resistant to charging for planning, but when you do, you remove that fear that there's some catch, right? If you're going to buy me a steak dinner, you don't charge me anything to come. And I'm not saying dinner seminars don't work at all. Obviously they do. But
Sure.
as far as how I like to operate, I know how you operate more as a consulting model. I think the consumer, when they pay something, it kind of lets them off the hook of feeling like, oh gosh, there must be a sale coming or a close coming somewhere, because otherwise, why is he doing this? And you kind of are able to remove that. And what's interesting, I find that works even if you're charging a small amount of money. I think as long as they're paying something, it kind of switches from prospect salesperson to consultant client, which I
Sure.
think is another big piece of what you've done. And I know that appointment process too, something that is, I thought, incredible when I reviewed, your numbers and kind of what you guys see on that. But I know before, when you were doing traditional dinner seminars, you were scheduling appointments with about 30% was kind of your average. But then when you introduced this lab concept and the new way that you now run that, you guys went to 76%. And I know since then it's probably, I think, higher than that. I think the last one was closer to 90% even. But obviously, I mean, that's just incredible, because again, we do all of this work, we invest all this money, we spend all this time to get to the appointment. So when you can go from 30% appointments to 76 and beyond, that is a literal game changer. And I think that probably is why you guys started to see the activity that you did.
Oh
Maybe
yeah.
talk about what was that first year, Rick? Talk about that first year. I know when we talked offline, what was that first year like when you're going from, I don't know, what was your average number of appointments to where you guys were running? I think it was sometimes 8, 9 appointments a day.
Yeah, 7 or 8 appointments a day. It was crazy. And it was like a doctor's office around here. We have 2 conference rooms, and we were just going back and forth from one conference room to the next, which I don't want to run that fast today. I'm much too old for that. But it was just, as this thing was taking off, I mean, it was just incredible, because people were hungry. People were hungry for something of value, to get their real questions answered without fear that somebody's going to try to sell them something. And it really makes all the difference when you can let go of that as an advisor. You don't have AUM breath or annuity breath or whatever. You're just there and you're concerned about whatever it is they have on their mind. In fact, you're not concerned about whether they become a client at all. Then that makes them want to work with you. In fact, our situation, our process, Brandon, is we literally never ask anybody to become a client. We never ask them to buy anything. It's always, if they want to work with us, they ask us, can we help them? And then if they're the right kind of client, then we will. It's just, the model is amazing. I mean, I pinch myself about how well it works.
Because you got, again, that's, I know, another psychological play, because you tell them, we're not taking, maybe speak to that, we're not taking clients except under certain circumstances, because that's another really powerful psychological play early on in the course that, again, helps them relax so that they can actually hear what you have to say. Because a lot of times I find that when the sales resistance is up or the fear of being sold is so high, they're worried about that and they're not actually listening to what you're saying. So I think when you're able to put that on the table genuinely and meaning that, it really helps everybody. So maybe speak to that piece a little bit.
Yeah, it really is a big deal, and it's not a bait and switch, because we really are to the point where, in fact, even if you're starving, you really only want the right kind of client. Otherwise, if you've been around any length of time at all, life is way too short. So we're very genuine in that, and we open up, as I mentioned earlier. We talk about our firm, but you can relax, ladies and gentlemen. We're not taking on new clients right now, except under specific circumstances. And of course, the specific circumstances are very genuine. They have a need, they become educated, they have a desire to fulfill that need, get that problem solved, and they think that we're the ones that can help them. That's the specific circumstances, and when those line up, they ask us to work with them, and it becomes, and again, it's interesting. We did have a situation where one client, net worth of 2 million investable assets, and he thought we were going to ask him to work with us. We didn't, and he asked why, and we said we simply, wish you the best, but it's not a good fit for our firm. And everybody shook hands and they went away. But it's that process that gives us the confidence to know that, what, this works. You don't have to worry about whether or not somebody becomes a client. It's going to work out, and the right people do. And interestingly enough, about that is that we've seen an increase in our average net worth, in terms of it's in excess now of $1.5 million coming through this process. Never saw that in the seminar business.
Right. That's I didn't realize it was that high. That would make a big difference. I wanted you to speak to something you said a minute ago, and then when you said 1.5 million was your average that you're seeing now, it totally threw me for a loop. But as it relates to saying no to non-ideal or not right fit clients, which I'm 120% on board with you, but I still remember and can still feel, yeah, but I just spent 10 grand on mail. Like, I've got to do this. So I think the piece that has to be there to make that work is the volume. And so let's talk, I want to go back to the marketing for just a minute before we start getting to questions here. But talk a little bit about, like, what kind of numbers are you seeing on the marketing side? And then we want to talk specifically about Facebook and direct mail, but like, what do you average as far as like attendees? And then obviously people can apply your appointment percentages to that, but just give us some of the metrics.
Well, I teach every month because you want to stay sharp, and it's just part of what we do. I love doing it and so on. And we've got a great team in terms of marketing. And right now we kind of kicked in some extra money into marketing for this month just to start off the first of the year, and literally start teaching tomorrow evening. And we've got over 100 registrations so far. And these particular model happens to be
Wow.
Facebook, which we find on Facebook we can't charge for. They just that it doesn't work. Direct mail we do, but not on Facebook. And we're expecting, if we get 45 to 50% show rate, that's going to be pretty typical. But that's going to be plenty enough in the room for me. My ideal class size is around 40 people. So it's gonna work out amazingly well, and we fully expect that 80% of that number will sign up to come in and do their financial lab, and then it's a process from there as far as who's qualified, and whether or not we can be of service to them, and all that sort of thing. But yeah, it's pretty
So
amazing
this
how
one,
it
did you
works.
say this one is all Facebook, or did you do some mail with this as well to get the 100 registrations that you have for tomorrow?
This one we did all Facebook and social media.
Wow.
So
What's
yeah,
your what do you expect, or what do you see on like a cost? Like if I'm budgeting, I'm an advisor and I'm budgeting for Facebook, like what does it cost you to generate a registration on Facebook?
it's about at this point $44 per
Wow.
registration, which is extremely low. Industry average is way over twice that. So it works very, very well. And so even at a 50% show rate, that's
You're at
obviously
88
88. So
bucks.
yeah, so that still
Yeah.
works out to be amazingly low.
Wow.
So but our typical registration runs 50 to 60, and we will generally spend, 4 or 5 thousand to do that. But I mean, with the way the course works, the effectiveness of it, that plus the rent on the room and some cookies, and we're good to go.
Well, I think it's the combination of the messaging, the positioning, but also the advertising. I don't know too many advisors pulling 100 registrations for, 44 bucks, and then being under $100 for an attendee. I think some of the vendors out there would charge you 250, $300. So obviously you've got your marketing dialed in, which is cool. That's actually phenomenal. So a couple of your numbers, and then we'll open it up and we'll take some questions, because I've seen several coming into the chat here. But so I know just from our work in prepping for the call, so just to give everybody an idea of your traditional seminar model versus where you are today, because you ran traditional dinner seminars in the late 90s, right? Or early 90s, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah, a
mid
long
90s
time.
on.
But I know
Mhm.
you told me, you used to be at about $225 a buying unit, whereas
Right.
now you're closer to about 100, which is, less than half. So you've actually been able to decrease your marketing spend, because to your point, at some point, too many people in the room actually becomes problematic, because you can only run so
Right.
many appointments. But then in addition to that, you've got, more buying units there as a result, but you've also got your appointment set rate going from 30 to closer to 76, 80%. So obviously everybody's there, you're getting that much more, turn of the wheel. And then the other big one you hit on quickly was that because they're paying to attend in most cases, and because it's perceived different, because it is a different deal than a dinner seminar, because the net worth is so much higher. I think last time that I talked to you about it, your average case size was around 850, 900,000. Whereas before, I think it was maybe closer to that $200,000 to $300,000.
Right.
That accurate? So really, for the same marketing dollars and really less, you guys went from, I know you also prior were not focused on AUM, but then you decided you wanted to incorporate that into the practice. But you guys went from, I don't know, zero AUM, I guess, to, 7 figures or more. I'm sorry, not 7 figures, that's revenue, but 100 million or more under management. And
Right.
what was it, just under 2 years, right? But
Yeah,
obviously it's all these pieces working together to make that happen. It's not just the marketing, it's not just the appointment process, it's the higher net worth, it's the closing ratios, et cetera, right, to make that work.
we didn't get to 100 million in 2 years, but we're on a run rate to get there, and we're there now. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been just like 4 or 5 years, and boom, we're there. And that's, having gone through a period of time where I had to be away from the practice for quite a while. Otherwise it'd probably be 150. But yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
remember
all,
you had some personal reasons you had to step away with your wife and things and some health stuff. But well, let's talk about some of the questions here, and let's open it up. We've got about 24 minutes left. So I want to make sure we always leave time on the calls, not just for the content, but for the questions, because I think that's where we're all on here to see how would this apply to me? How do I put this to work? So let's see, Aubrey, you want to help me out? And I think one of the first ones I had in here was Stefan. We want to bring Stefan on and let him ask a question relative to BDs and RIAs, which, Rick, while he's coming on, if I remember right, you are affiliated with an RIA, or you guys your own RIA? I don't remember.
The firm, my son, he handles that side of the practice, and he's currently an IAR.
Okay.
But we'll eventually be doing the RIA thing soon.
Cool. Stefan,
why don't you go ahead
welcome.
and ask your question, Stefan?
Yep.
Yeah. I guess like I did a very brief, about a 5-minute public speech, and my company, I had to write everything out word for word. What I was going to say. They said, you cannot say anything different from this. Now, I'm not highly successful in the business like you are, but still, I wonder if I were to try to teach a course like this, would I run into that sort of thing? I'm Series 6, 63, and 65. So, that of course relates to this whole question.
Sure. I'm guessing you're with a BD or something. Is that right? Yeah. So they, some of them, just from all the years I've been doing this, are pretty restrictive. Of course, our course is compliance approved, so they would want to see the content of the course. There's not a written script per se, because it'd be pretty tough to memorize the entire thing, plus to a degree, you're going to make some of it your own. But, they could watch perhaps a video presentation of it if needed be, to see it. So that's something you'd have to work out with them. But, the course is compliance approved.
And I know in my experience, just to follow up on that, in working with advisors to help them create compelling courses, seminars, webinars, et cetera, taking that content to FINRA, having them review it and provide not an approval letter. They don't approve anything, but they give you a review letter. Typically, when you hand that over to your compliance department and you have that letter, sails right through, no problem. So that's something, Rick, I don't know if you've done that with the course, but might talk about.
Sure.
So Stefan, thanks for coming on. Thanks for your question. Let's see who else we've got here.
Yeah, we've got Lee. Lee asked, what's the difference between what Rick does and 2-day college workshops I and others have done at a local college?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part.
I'll fill in. What's the difference between what you do and some of the 2-day college workshops that they may have done or gotten from other places at local colleges?
Well, I have no idea. I'd say probably the content and the methodology. That's primarily it, because this is specifically written. The subject matter is very, very unique, but yet, real world. So I would guess that's probably the difference.
Well, I would tack onto that, Rick. I think the bigger difference from my perspective is it's not just the course, it's the whole thing. It's having the separate positioning from your financial practice with the educational brand. It's how you frame up the appointment process. And then, of course, it's how you layer in some of the psychological angles throughout the 2 nights of the course. And again, that's what I was saying earlier. I think there's a lot of vendors. You can go buy seminar presentations and you can call your thing a 2-night course, but it's the specialization of these things that I believe, my conviction, which is why we started Next Level. You're only going to learn that from advisors in the trenches that are actually doing it, that have really taken the time to refine it to the level that you have. I think I know Patrick had a question on pieces of direct mail.
I had a couple of different questions. I just asked him to unmute. You want to come on, Patrick? Okay, well, we can repeat them out loud. He said, how many pieces of additional, you got it?
Yeah, how many pieces of additional direct mail do you have to send out to get your audience? And I know we touched on that a minute go, but maybe what's kind of your normal average? I know this most previous round, you said it was 100% Facebook. Is that normal? What do you normally send?
Well, usually if I'm doing a combo, and of course, everybody's demographic area is going to be different. So it depends on, what you're searching for in terms of your net worth, investable net worth, and that sort of thing. And by the way, I would, counsel everybody to make that as high as you possibly can so that you attract the right kind of person. But probably at least 5,000 mailers. If I'm doing a joint direct mail and social media, I'll typically do 5,000 mailers.
Which really is kind of surprising for me to hear that, because I think most advisors I talk to just that are looking for consulting or marketing help, it's 10 to 15,000 pieces of mail has kind of become the norm.
Right.
So I think the last time I only sent 5,000 mailers was 2008. This has been a while since I've been able to get by with that. But I guess the way you've refined the messaging and the marketing, you're obviously getting a lot higher response rate than the average also.
Well, and if I'm doing direct mail only, then it's probably closer to 10,000, depending on what I've got.
But you're getting so many from the Facebook that you don't have to send as much mail. That makes more sense.
Yeah, I mean, the Facebook is a people are on it. People in our age group are the clients that we're looking for are on social media. Everybody is. So it's but they both work, and depending on the area, everybody's different. But yeah.
Sure. Okay, excellent. I think next we had Christine had a question. I hadn't had a chance to read the whole thing, but Christine, you want to unmute and you can come on and ask your question?
Hey, sure. It's not really a question. It was more kind of an endorsement. We've been using a 2-day classroom style at the local college course as well for retirement income planning. Mm-hmm. And it's all in the presentation. It's all in the setup. And we've always referred to the appointment as being the labs, same thing, right? And everybody, we position it, schedule it. We talk about it constantly. We talk about it when we introduce the class. We talk about it when going on break. We talk about it at the end of the class. Every time we mention it, and we don't have a whole lot of people scheduled before the class starts, but every time we talk about it, hey, don't forget, you paid for this class. This class has 3 parts. The first 2 are in classroom. The last is in office. We call those the labs because we understand that you don't want to talk about your own personal finances in a room full of strangers. Therefore, we give you the ability to discuss your personal situation with us at the end of this class as part of the labs. And by the second day, everybody in the class has signed up for an appointment.
No, that's awesome. Well, that's very cool. So have you worked with Rick, or did you guys figure that out somewhere else? That's just, you're saying you've tapped into some of the same psychology and positioning. That's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And excellent. So it's gold. I mean, the minute you switch from having it be a part of the presentation, it's just wrapping it up. There's no sales tactic in there. Hey, right. You're here to talk to your questions, and we bring it up when they come in. Hey, they're, typically these conversations go one of 3 ways. 1, you just want to get your questions answered from class. 2, you're looking for a little extra help. Therefore, we might need a little more information. Or 3, you just want us to help you. Nothing is going to happen. You can't hire us at that appointment.
Right. That's excellent. No, thanks for coming on and confirming. I'm glad to hear that you're kind of on the same vein.
Works great.
And that it works same for you. That's awesome. Next question we had was from Patrick. Patrick, I'll see if I'll ask you to unmute and you can come on. I think you had a question about location specifically.
You didn't unmute before, so this might be another case of let's go over it.
Okay, yeah, this was one I hadn't heard anybody ask yet, but it was asking to speak to the college classroom versus a public library or a community center. So same model, but a slightly different location. Yeah,
so those others can work, but I think if you can get a college campus in some form, that's always the best because of the adult financial education nature of it. The next best thing would be a popular high school that has easy access, easy parking. All of those things enter into it. If you get into the community centers and libraries, it's, again, they can work, but it's a little bit less a little bit lower perception in terms of the educational model. So, hey, it all works. I've got advisors that I work with that in a rare circumstance can't get the college or whatever it's not the best location for them, or they can't get in. So the next best thing is, high school, community college is good. And then lastly, public library.
Excellent. Andrew had a question on webinars and virtual. Andrew, I'm gonna ask you to unmute real quick.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Your question is near and dear to my
Wonderful.
heart. So I'm excited to hear what Rick has to say to this.
Rick, nice to meet you. So the question is, and I'm, by the way, I'm familiar with Dave Vick. I met him many, many years ago here in the Arizona area. But my question is, how do you create your material? How did you create your material? I understand the syllabus and the workbook, and I like that idea. I've created something myself over the years, just not exercised it yet. But I'm curious in how you got that material put together. Was it just based on your knowledge? Was it based on experience? Was it based on what people were saying they were interested in learning about?
That's a good question. I would say it was put together largely from, again, the fact that, what we saw was important in the planning process with, retirees. Our planning firm is mainly 55 and up in terms of the age of our clients. So we are a retirement planning and wealth management firm. So based on that experience, as well as the fact that, I'm 66, I'm a baby boomer. I know what their concerns are, and having the 40 plus years in the financial business, we continually do our own research in terms of what's going on in the world from the financial standpoint, behind the scenes, monetary policy, all of that, and we incorporate those kinds of things into the course. So partly being an author, partly being an educator, it all just kind of came together naturally.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the follow-up question I want to hear your follow-up question. That is on the webinars or virtual model. Is there a virtual model of this that could be run, in your opinion, Rick?
Soon.
All right.
The material is so in depth, it has to be broken up into modules. And I got to tell you, there's no better master at doing that sort of thing than Brandon Sturkey. So,
well, it just hit me. I thought, well, I know exactly how we do that. My first thought was, well, how in the world would you do a webinar that's 2.5 hours long? That would never work. But you're exactly right. I would do it in an actual masterclass style, on demand, video course where you have time. And I know we're working on that direct to consumer course where they could go through and consume it, at the pace that makes sense for them. And so excited to see. We'll have to have you back on after you launch that and report on how that's going.
Sure.
Let's see if we have any other questions in here.
I think that's it.
I think we hit them. So if you guys gals have any more, please drop those in. But real quick, I just want to let everybody know, Rick, about your masterclass that you put together on this, which I think you've done a phenomenal job. As I audited the course myself personally, I was just really pleased to see how much you've really packed in there. Because the question, that always comes up is, okay, great. Like, how do I actually start to do that and do it at the level that Rick is doing it or has found to do it? And so what I thought I would do for everybody, because I know we have a lot of new names on. So for those of you who it's your first time on the show, you're maybe not a Next Level member already, wanted to let you know about Rick's masterclass. So on our website, which is nextleveladvisorsinc.com, which Aubrey, maybe you could pop that in the chat for folks on here who aren't already members. If you go on our site, if you go under courses, you can go down to the Next Level seminars, or if you go to mentors, you can just go down to Rick right there. And if you click on that, it'll pull up the info on his masterclass. So Rick's put together a 4-part course on his model, on what he does, which is really, let's say 2.5 hours, everything from his seminar marketing process to the course itself and how he puts that together, his financial lab process, and then even how he optimizes, which we didn't have time to touch on, but how he optimizes for maximum ROI. Each conversion point in his college course and appointment process is all there. There's a course description here, but if you are interested in that, you can also go, if you click begin course, you'll have to become a member. It's $197 a month, but you'll not only get access to Rick's masterclass, but all of the courses that we offer at Next Level. And I didn't give the introduction as I did last week for those of you who are new, but our business model at Next Level is we want to bring together the best advisors in the industry. Because again, our conviction is you don't learn karate from someone who knows a lot of black belts. You find a black belt and you learn underneath them. And I think that lost art of mentorship is something that's been really missing in our industry for a long time, as we've all been conditioned to look to wholesalers and vendors. And really, while wholesalers and vendors have a place, if we want to know how to master certain elements of this business, again, our convictions, that's going to come directly from mentors. So we've built courses, and we launched this year with appointments and, high net worth clients, marketing, women's marketing, advanced planning, profitability. So there's several courses on there. And as a Next Level member, you get access to all of them with all of our different mentors. You can also engage with us in our Facebook group. If you're not already a member at Facebook, you can search Next Level Advisors on Facebook, and you can find us on there where Rick, myself, and the other mentors are on there on a regular basis. You can pop in, ask questions, say hi, and we can have great dialogue that way as well. So again, I would encourage any of you that are interested in how do I actually implement a model like this? You can hop in if you're not already a member, go through that course. You could probably consume the whole thing in less than 3 hours, but we'll take you from 0 to 60 in terms of what we've been able to cover here today. So any other questions popped in? Maybe no, I don't see any more. So in the chat window there, Aubrey popped in the site. So any of you want to check that out, it's nextleveladvisorsinc.com. So don't forget the ink on the end there, or you'll end up with some financial planner in Pennsylvania until we buy the domain. But thanks everybody for being on. If we don't have any other questions, I'll let everybody go. But Rick, thank you for being on. Andrew, thanks for the kind feedback. I appreciate it. Just the comments, and those of you who came on, ask questions. I know sometimes when it's a new platform, new show, it can be a little nerve-wracking to come off mute and ask a question, but we love the questions. That's really what keeps this going and makes this so valuable, so we can all learn from one another. So we'll be back next week, same time, same place. So please put that on your calendar. We look forward to having all of you guys and gals back, and have a great rest of the week.